All right, so this is my week 14 NFL power rankings. Let's get started. All right, so starting off with our injuries, you guys can kind of just look at this yourself. I did want to mention Austin Eckler is going to be out for the Commanders until probably the postseason, which is definitely going to hurt them. And Trevor Lawrence is going to be out for probably the season with the shoulder injury. And then we got our top performances. Again, you guys can kind of just look at this yourself. I do want to mention Jameis Winston had a prime Jameis Winston game with nearly 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, and 2 pick sixes. So, starting off here at number 32, we got the New York Giants. They're 2-10. They lost 27-20 versus the Cowboys. Dexter Lawrence also on the IR for them. They're not a good team. Number 31, Jacksonville Jaguars. They're 2-10 as well. They lost by 3 to the Texans, 23-20, and then of course losing Trevor Lawrence to injury does not help them at all. Even though they had a decent game here with Mac Jones for the most part. Number 3, Tennessee Titans going to drop 3 spots. They are 3-9 now. They lost 42-19 versus the Commanders. Got absolutely blown out. Number 29 is going to be the Raiders. They're 2-10. They do move up 1 spot. They almost beat the Chiefs. They just lost 19 to 17 here with a very interesting last play of that game for them. Number 28 is going to be the New England Patriots at 3-10, jumping up 1 spot as well. They had a solid game, only lost by 1 point, 25-24 versus the Indianapolis Colts. Number 27 is going to be the Carolina Panthers. They're going to jump up 1 spot here at 3-9. They had a solid game as well. Bryce Young played pretty good. Again, I believe he's had like 3 or 4 games in a row now with 0 turnovers. So very good to see him, actually showing some progression as a player. But they lost by 3 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in overtime, 26-23. Number 26 is going to be the New York Jets. They're going to drop 2 spots or 3-9. They lost by 5 points to the Seattle Seahawks. They were up for a big part of this game. They ended up blowing a lead. I believe Aaron Rodgers threw a pick 6 in this game. So they definitely had a shot to win this, but they kind of blew it away in the second half. Number 25 is the New Orleans Saints at 4-8. They played a pretty decent game. They lost to the Rams this week, 21-14. And they did lose Taysom Hill to a season-ending injury. That's definitely going to hurt them. He was a really good player, but they're kind of already screwed. They're only 2 games back from their division, so technically they still have a decent chance. But I don't believe in them to really close that gap at all. Number 24, the Chicago Bears are going to drop 1 spot here. They're 4-8. They almost beat the Lions. They just lost 23-20. They had a very stupid last sequence there. There was like 35 seconds left, and they only got 1 play off in that entire time when they were in field goal range, really. So like they had a very good shot to tie that game going to overtime, but for some reason Matt Eberflus is an idiot, which is why he ended up getting fired after that game. Number 23 is going to be the Dallas Cowboys, who played a pretty close game with the Giants there on Thanksgiving. They only won 27-20, but a win is a win. 5-7. I mean, the Cowboys are obviously not really doing much with Cooper Rush. I don't see them making any sort of late season push here for a playoff spot. But he hasn't necessarily played bad for them. Number 22 is going to be the Cleveland Browns. They're 3-9. They lost this week 41-32 versus the Denver Broncos. A very good game offensively, but then again, Jameis Winston did throw 3 interceptions. So, I mean, this is the kind of games you're going to get with Jameis Winston. You get some high scoring games where he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and then he also looks like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Potentially even like on back-to-back throws, he can kind of be that type of guy. Number 21 is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. They jump up 4 spots here. They're now 6-7, only 2 games away from the Broncos, which they play after both the Colts and Broncos have a bye this week, and then they play each other. So if the Colts can win that game there in Week 15, they have a shot to make a late season push for that last wild card spot there. But this week they've got a much needed win, 25-24 versus the Patriots. I believe they had basically a last second touchdown and a 2 point conversion to take the lead. Number 20 is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to drop 2 spots. They're 5-7. Not a good look for them. Their division still isn't that good. I believe they're only 2 games outside of the Seahawks for the lead in that division, but I don't really have a lot of faith in this Niners team, especially with the injuries they have. Brock Purdy's been banged up, but I think he's still playing. But Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason are now both on the IR, so I really have no faith in this Niners team to make any sort of late season run after losing this week 35-10 versus the Buffalo Bills. Number 19 is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals at 4-8. They still got all the guys, like for the most part, so they're better than the Niners. I think in that aspect, their offense has been amazing all season long. Joe Burrow is great. They had a good game this week. They lost 44-38 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. So again, their offense was amazing. They just let Russell Wilson put up 400 yards and 3 touchdowns on them. So their defense freaking sucks. Number 18 is going to be the Miami Dolphins. They're going to drop 2 spots. They're 5-7. This week they played the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving Day. They lost 30-17. So yeah, they're 5-7. They're almost, I believe, like 3 games out of the Broncos for that last wild card spot. So I don't see any real shot of them making a late season wild card push. Number 17 is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. They lost this week in an embarrassing fashion, only 17-13 versus the Chargers. So on paper, there it looks like a good loss, but Kirk Cousins had 4 interceptions. So even if you would have cut that down to even only 3 interceptions, they very well could have won this game. So if Kirk Cousins did not absolutely suck, this team is probably 7-5, which would be much needed because they're currently tied for the lead of their division with the Buccaneers. Luckily, they have the tiebreaker there. They beat them twice in the 2 times they played them, but they can't really afford any slip ups, in the back quarter of the season because then Tampa Bay will most likely take advantage and knock this Falcons team out of the playoffs. Number 16 is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. They're going to jump up 4 spots. They had a really good win here, a much needed win in that 21-14 versus the Saints. They also signed cornerback Emmanuel Forbes, who was on the Commanders, so I think he's a decent addition. He might get some playing time for this Rams team, help them make a late season, postseason push. And they're only 1 game back in their division, tied with the Cardinals at 6-6, 1 game back from the Seahawks at 7-5, and they play both of those teams one more time this season. So if they can win both of those games and win, a couple of their other 3 games they got left, this Rams team is certainly in position to make to win their division and make the postseason. Number 15 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, jumping up 2 spots. They're sitting at 6-6. Like I said earlier, tied with the Falcons. They do not play the Falcons, so they're going to have to hope that the Falcons lose, and so they can take advantage of it. Because right now the Falcons still do control their own destiny, but the Buccaneers are knocking on that door. They played a pretty good game. They won 26-23 in overtime versus the Panthers. So again, a 3-point win versus the Panthers in overtime doesn't look great, but Panthers have been playing better the last few weeks, and it still is a win, which looks good for this Buccaneers to get back to 500. Number 14 is going to be yet another 6-6 team here with the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to drop 1 spot. They did lose to the Minnesota Vikings, who are a good team. They lost 23-22, but they blew, I believe, like a 13 or 14-point lead. So maybe even more than that. I'm not exactly sure what the deficit was, but they had a 2 possession lead, and they kind of ended up blowing it late in the game. But still sitting at 6-6, 1 game back from the Seattle Seahawks in their division. I believe they have another game against Seattle, and they do. Yeah, just this next week right here, they have a game against Seattle. They have a game against the Rams. So again, if they can win both of those games, then they got the Patriots and Panthers here the next 2 weeks after that as well. They could easily get to 10 wins if they can beat the Seahawks and Rams and win their division. Number 13 is going to be the Houston Texans. They're going to jump up 1 spot. They're 8-5. They have not been a very impressive team, so luckily that they're lucky that the division kind of sucks, because right now they'd be tied with the Broncos, I believe, for the wild card spot. Broncos and Ravens, yeah, they'd be tied for that last wild card spot with the Broncos and Ravens if they were not a division leader. But luckily for them, like I said earlier, their division kind of sucks. They beat the Jags only by 3 points this game. Not a great win, but they're going to win their division. They're going to be the 4th seed, and that's really all they can hope for at this point. Number 12, the Seattle Seahawks are 7-5, ended up winning a much needed game 26-21 versus the Jets to take a solid one game lead in their division. And like I said, they played both the Cardinals and the Rams later in this season. So if they can win both of those games, that will most likely lock up a playoff berth in a division title for them. Number 11 is going to be the Washington Commanders at 8-5. They had a solid game. They won 42-19 versus the Titans. The Titans kind of suck, but they did dominate them. So it was good to see them get back in the win column. I believe they had lost two straight games before that, so they're still looking good in that NFC wildcard spot. They're probably not going to catch the Eagles for their division, but they're certainly comfortable in that wildcard spot with a two-game lead over the Cardinals, Bucks, and Rams, all down at 6-6. Number 10 is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers at 8-4. They're going to also probably be one that's likely in a wild card spot. They have a small lead over the Ravens and Broncos, and then the Colts are like 3 games or 2 games below them as well. So they're looking really solid to win their to win a wild card spot. They beat the Falcons 17-13 this week. J.K. Dobbins is on the IR, and it definitely showed that that's going to hurt them. But if he can come back for the playoffs, and this team I think is good enough to get 2 more wins, and that'll lock them up. That'll lock up a playoff berth for them for sure. And getting J.K. Dobbins back, they can make some noise in the postseason. Number 9 is going to be the Denver Broncos. I think they're just slightly better than the Chargers. I think they do play each other one more time this season. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to go look right now at the Broncos' schedule. They play the Chargers, in week 16. So they can beat the Colts and the Chargers the next 2 weeks. Then they're going to probably have that tiebreaker then over the Chargers, and they could easily be the number 5 seed themselves rather than being the 7 seed where they are currently located. But this week they won 41-32 versus the Browns. I believe it was their best offensive performance of the season, and it was really good to see that for them. Number 8 is going to be the Green Bay Packers. They won pretty convincingly 30-17 versus the Miami Dolphins on Thanksgiving Day. Really solid win for this Packers team. They have a very important matchup against the Detroit Lions tonight. Number 7 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens at 8-5. They lost. They're going to drop 2 spots this week after losing to the Philadelphia Eagles 24-19. It was a good loss against a good team, and they're still looking very good to be in the playoffs, but it's going to be really hard for them to catch the Pittsburgh Steelers in their division. There's certainly a chance, but they're down 1.5 games. They do play them once, but they're going to need the Steelers to lose even one more game, and the Steelers don't have like the hardest schedule remaining. They do got to play the Chiefs. So if the Ravens can beat the Steelers and the Steelers lose to the Chiefs, and the Steelers also play the Eagles. So they actually do have a tough schedule. So Baltimore very well could take advantage of their easier schedule as long as they beat the Steelers and then steal that division title from them. But it's still not going to be a very easy task for them to do so. Number 6 is going to be the Minnesota Vikings at 10-2. They had a good win, a good comeback win. They won 23-22 versus the the Arizona Cardinals this week. They're still one game behind the Lions for their division title, 10-2, which is kind of insane. They play the Lions in Week 18, so they can win out the rest of these games. That can be a very, very important matchup for them. They also play the Packers, and if the Packers were to win out and then beat the Vikings could even drop down to the 6th seed. So very well, those 2 divisional games for the Vikings could make the difference between being the 1 seed or being the 6th seed. They're currently a lock pretty much for the playoffs, though. Have a 4-game lead over the 8th seed. Number 5 is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Had a very good win, 44-38 versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Their defense was not as dominant as it usually is, but their offense also had their best statistical performance in probably the last 5 years. They absolutely dominated. Russell Wilson was amazing here in this game. And like I said earlier, they have a good shot to have their division win over the Ravens, especially if they can beat them the next time they play each other. They'll probably lock up the division if they can do that. Number 4 is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to actually drop 1 spot again. They're down to number 4 as tied for the best record in the league. But again, they had a very unimpressive victory over the Las Vegas Raiders, 19-17 versus Aiden O'Connell, and they barely escaped with a lucky fumble on the last play there for the Raiders. If they if they didn't get that fumble, they were probably in prime field goal range, probably would have made it. But the Raiders kicker also missed like 3 field goals that game. So they got lucky with missed field goals, got lucky with the fumble. But they're still 11-1, and they are already clinched the playoffs. They're still a good team, but I don't really think, I don't know. They have not been very impressive, really, for the most part of this season. Number three is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I was really tempted to move this team up to number two, but I wanted to respect the guys ahead of them. They're going to move up to number three because they did beat the Ravens 24-19. Very good for them. They're looking good in their division now. 2-game lead over Washington Commanders. They're almost certainly going to clinch the playoffs after this week, and they play the Commanders of the week in a few weeks in week 16. If they can beat the Commanders that week, that'll most likely clinch their division for them, and they'll probably end up being the 2 or 3 seed, or probably the 1 or 2 seed, sorry, if they can somehow surpass the Lions if they were to lose. But I would expect them to be a pretty easy lock at the 2 seed here. Number two is going to be the Detroit Lions. They're going to drop one spot, actually. I almost dropped them below the Eagles, but I wanted to respect them a little bit more than that. They did not have a dominant win. They barely beat the Chicago Bears by 3 points, and they probably would have gone to overtime if the Bears weren't retarded, if Matt Eberflus wasn't retarded. This game probably would have been in overtime, and they very well could have lost. But still, this team has been very, very good all season. I'm going to keep them here at number two, almost a lock to make the playoffs so they can beat the Vikings and Packers the next times they play them. They're going to be a lock in their division and a lock pretty much for the 1 seed as well. Number one is going to be the Buffalo Bills. They're going to jump up one spot to finally surpass the Lions as the best team in the league, in my opinion. They dominated the 49ers 35-10. The Niners are not the Niners, but I mean, I think that's still a pretty good win, a very convincing win. Josh Allen had 4 touchdowns. He threw a touchdown pass to himself. Technically, he threw it to Amari Cooper. He pitched it back to him, but it counts as a receiving touchdown and a passing touchdown for Josh Allen. That was pretty cool. This team's, I don't know if they've technically locked up. They have. They have clinched the division so far, so that's pretty good for them. They're probably going to be a number 2 seed unless Kansas City can slip up and lose one of their games, and the Bills happen to go undefeated. But yeah, that's going to end up our game picks. I was 13-3 last week, 130-65 overall. Pretty good percentage there. This week, I don't really want to talk too much about these, but the Lions Packers should be close, but I'm taking the Lions. Eagles Panthers should be easy. Bucks Raiders should be easy. I'm taking the Falcons to upset the Vikings in Kirk Cousins' return game. Dolphins Jets, that could be close. Steelers Browns could be close, but I'm going to take the Steelers. Giants and Saints is a bad game. I'm taking Drew Lock to get a win there. Titans Jags with Mac Jones playing. I'm taking the Titans. Cardinals Seahawks. I'm going to take the Cardinals to even that up in their division, both at 7-6. Bills and the Rams should be easy. The Rams are good, but the Bills are just better. Bears Niners. I'm actually going to take the Bears to upset there. I think the Niners have just been pretty bad, and I think the Bears are going to get a sneaky good game here. Chiefs Chargers should be pretty close as well, but I'm taking the Chiefs. And then Bengals Cowboys is my lock of the week. The Bengals should not lose to the Cowboys. That's all I'm going to say. My award races, I don't want to talk too much about this. You guys can kind of just look at this yourself. But I did want to mention that Saquon is now only number 2 in MVP voting, or at least for the odds. So it'd be cool to see if he can surpass Josh Allen here in the next couple of weeks. But other than that, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back next week for an updated power rankings list. And make sure to check out my NBA videos as well.